This is episode 10 of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and in this episode, Michael and I discuss the ideal time to introduce Pokémon to your children. Welcome to another episode of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and today I'm joined with Michael, who this is the first time I think we've hosted an episode together since our first intro episode with Rob.
Yeah, it's true. It's been a while. I'm excited to be back.
So, because you and Rob have done some episodes, and then I've done some episodes with TJ and with Rob, but first time we're back together. So,
which is good because we have some beef that we need to discuss today.
Oh, beef makes it sound really intense. Let's not get intense. But no, we're just trying to. But I was surprised by how hard it was to coordinate our schedules, but we made it work because we like to have fun, and we're hoping that you guys are enjoying the content we're putting out. So let's jump right in. Today we want to talk about when is an appropriate good age to introduce your kids to Pokemon. And I've kind of broken it down into the games, the anime, the cards, and honestly, Pokemon's putting out a variety of content nowadays that really is a wide range of ages, but we'll get to that in a second.
And even before that, like, did you ever expect as a kid that Pokemon would last to adulthood?
You know, you never think about those things as a kid, but you certainly didn't. I certainly don't think I expected it to be relevant as an adult. But we got Pokemon content that's more relevant to adults now than it is to kids. But we'll get to that in a second. Because first we've got our recommendations. So something that we've been watching or reading or playing or whatever that we think you guys might find enjoyable or interesting. I've been somewhat obsessed with Bluey lately, and Kenton and Joe both wrote blog posts about Bluey, and about Joe's was about the chaotic Muffin from Bluey, the cousin. And I just, if there's ever a time that I can convince my daughter to watch Bluey instead of Cocomelon or something like that, I consider it a success. But because we like Bluey enough, I'm going to include links to Kenton's post about loving Bluey as a parent, Joe's blog post about Muffin, and our friends over at Pop Culture on the Apricot Tree did a podcast episode about Bluey as well earlier in 2023. So we'll give a shout out to them in the show notes.
Yeah, you know, I love Bluey. Like my daughter loves Bluey. She can't get enough of watching it. And you know, the one thing I like about it is each episode's about 5 to 7 minutes. So you can say, yeah, you can watch 3 episodes of Bluey and it should be 15 minutes long. But what's amazing is, like, Bluey has helped me become a better parent. Like, I've had experience where I thought of Bluey's dad and tried to emulate him in a parent situation. Is that if I share that story with you?
Oh, of course. You can always talk about Bluey.
So what happened was I was at a family reunion, and my daughter, Murph, she spilled some water. And usually we're outside. It's a cup full of water. Nothing got on her food. Nothing got on her. But everyone was looking at Murph, and she was just so sad. And she started crying, and I had to pick her up, and we had to
poor girl.
Go. Yeah, poor girl. I had to leave and try to comfort her, and she was just so sad. She just wanted to go home from this family reunion. And then it reminded me of an episode from Bluey where like everyone was taking advantage of Bingo, saying, Bingo, you want to buy this? Bingo, you want to do this?
Oh, that one broke my heart.
And Bingo just kept getting more sad and sad, but at the end they
Yeah, she
realized
felt
that
like
they
she
were
had to just say yes and yes and like
Mhm.
put everyone else in front of herself.
Yep. And at the end they finally asked like, all right, Bingo, what would you like to do? And she wanted everyone to dance.
I think that episode is called like Dance Mode or something, right?
I
I
honestly
don't know.
forget what that.
I'll look it up and I'll put it in the show notes.
So I remember that, and I remember his dad saying, her dad saying, "I'm doing this for my kid." And so I told Murph, I was like, "Hey, if we go back, I will spill my own water."
Oh,
So we went back, and I sat down, and I was like, "I'm doing this for my kid," and I knocked my water off the table. And of course, we're outside, and water means nothing outside, right?
yeah. But to
But
her, it
like
was
it
a
meant,
big deal.
yeah, it meant everything to her. So like she at that point she wasn't sad anymore. She was happy to be at the party, and we just enjoyed it for the rest of the day.
That's awesome.
So
Gold
Bluey can't help
star
but be a
dad
better
moment.
parent.
Yes. And I think that's one of the best things is that, kids love it, but also parents find it relatable too.
Mm-hmm.
And even non-parents like Joe on our blog team, he's not a dad, but he loves Bluey. So I think there's something we can all get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually already got mentally preparing a Father's Day post for next June about Bandit Healer.
Nice.
So,
He's a good dad, but he's not a perfect dad, and that's what I like about him
and I think that's what makes him a good dad is he's a realistic dad.
to a degree. Anyway, so for my recommendations this week or for this podcast, I would say Defiant by Brandon Sanderson. It came out November 21st, and this is the fourth book in the Skyward series. And so
Is that
if you like,
Cosmere?
no, it's not Cosmere,
Okay.
but it's its own it's a YA series, and it's a sci-fi slash fantasy series,
Okay, so Skyward is separate from Cosmere.
separate from Cosmere.
This is one of the reasons I have a hard time wanting to get into the Cosmere books or Brandon Sanderson books is because I can never keep track of where I should start and what books are what.
Honestly, I would suggest like if you like reading YA and you're hesitant about going into the Cosmere book, I would say either start with Skyward or start with the Reckoner series, where the Reckoners is like all the superheroes, people that have superpowers become evil.
Ooh.
So, and then your job or the main character's job is to eliminate all the superheroes.
It's like the opposite of Incredibles, where all the people with superpowers are the heroes and all the techie people are the bad guys. Like it's just assumed that if you have superpowers, you're a good guy in that movie.
Yep. Anyway, so read Brandon Sanderson. Everyone should. It's clean. It's good.
Well, there's a blog post assignment for you. Teach me which Cosmere books are a good place to start.
I think I do have a blog post about that.
I can't remember. We'll look at that later.
Yeah. We'll add it into the notes if I do.
Yep. All right. So shall we get talking about Pokemon?
Yeah, let's start this friendly beef that we have with each other.
If I can figure out the Spotify for podcasters, I'll see if I can put some background Pokemon battle music in right here. And if I figure it out, it's going to start right here. Okay, so let's start with, I think the easy one is going to be, let's start talking about the anime. That's probably in my opinion, one of the first places that kids would be introduced to Pokemon before they ever touch, console games or handheld games or cards, because those ones involve a bit of understanding of reading.
Mm-hmm.
So before they're literate enough to play the games and the cards, we have the anime that we could start with.
Exactly. And so this is probably where we differ in opinions.
Mhm.
And I would say neither of us are wrong,
Yeah.
and neither of us is right. And it's just based off of opinion. So if you, and we want to know what you guys think too. So if you agree with Spencer, leave a comment. If you agree with me, leave a comment. And let's continue this discussion
Yeah.
outside this podcast.
Yeah, let's have a discussion, because there's no one right way to do parenting. There are plenty of wrong ways to do parenting. But fortunately, with this one, I don't think there's a particularly wrong way to do Pokemon.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, you can't go wrong with Pokemon.
It's pretty wholesome, almost all the way around. But there's one exception to that, but we'll get to that at the end.
All
in
right.
my opinion.
So should we discuss what's our opinions on the anime?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I'm working out or something, I usually will have a show on of one sort or another. And when my 3-year-old was young enough that she didn't really pay attention to the TV, she didn't know what was going on with the TV. Like, it didn't really matter what shows we had on in the background with her in the room. But as she got to understand, and especially as she started talking and stuff, we started being more and more careful with what was on TV, the kind of stuff that she might repeat in public. So that's when I started more putting on shows like Disney Channel or Disney Princesses, or Pokemon or Digimon, because I know there's not going to be swear words. I know there's not going to be mature content, so it's pretty safe to have around your kids. Whether she's watching it or not is another question, but I felt like it was a safe option to have, that she could enjoy, quote unquote, without getting invested, and without having to worry about what she was listening to.
And how old was she when she started watching Pokemon?
Probably 1 or 2. I mean, it was probably on in the background whenever it was whenever I was watching it. Like, she probably was exposed to it pretty much straight from birth, but she didn't ever sit down and like actually pay attention to it until she was like 1 or 2. Granted, she still doesn't really sit down and watch much of anything except for Bluey and Cocomelon and kids shows. She doesn't really sit down for much of anything.
And see, I haven't introduced Pokemon to my daughter yet. And our daughter, just to let the audience know, is about
our daughters
the same
are
age.
about the same age. So, because your oldest is how old?
He will be 4 in next year.
Okay.
Beginning next year.
And my daughter, right now she's 3 at the time of our recording, but I think by the time this episode is released, she'll be 4 by that point. So within 6 months of each other, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like so, and I haven't introduced Pokemon to my oldest, Murph. And here's the thing, like I understand that like once you introduce it, the oldest, the younger kids will have to like be introduced to it at the same time because they're always together. But I wanted to like at least try to push it to the limit, so like the younger ones are old enough and the oldest one is still not too old. And what I'm really hoping is like I want to start them where they're a little bit older, so they can like get interested in the plot of the show, even though it's a basic plot and it's very repetitive plot. I want her to be interested in like Pikachu and what means that Pikachu gets captured from Ash every episode. And like I think I've seen a trend online, or like I saw this viral reel where dad like takes his toddler and there's Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle, and the child will walk up and pick one of the 3.
Yeah.
It's separated enough that the child can go and pick one, and then as the child picks up the other one, he takes the other 2 away. So they have their own Pokemon like starter experience. And I'm like, oh yeah, I would totally do that. But I want her old enough where she can actually like decide which one that she thinks is the cutest. And
Yeah.
then yeah,
Well, I guess yeah. Whereas by the time, I mean, my daughter's favorite is Chikorita, but that's because I had a plush
that's just because you're
Chikorita.
biased.
No, actually, it's because I had a plush Chikorita that I was gonna surprise a friend with because that's his favorite. Um, but it's been long enough since I've visited that friend or had him visit me that my daughter found it first. So then Chikorita
Mhm.
became her favorite because that's who she has.
Sorry, I was mistaken. Your favorite is Cyndaquil, or
No,
yeah,
my favorite
of the second
is
G or second
oh, from the
generation.
second generation. Yes, Cyndaquil is my favorite from the second generation.
I forgot what your first favorite is. It's if I had to guess, I think it was Squirtle, correct?
Yeah, I mean I kind of jump between Squirtle, Charmander, and Cyndaquil. They're kind
Okay.
of representative of me and some of my friends, but that's a whole nother silly story.
So yeah, so that's where our differences are. With the anime is to start like I want to start later so she can remember it and we could like experience like have the experience together watching it for her first time and me just coming along for the journey.
Mhm. Whereas my daughter, she won't remember her first time watching it because it's been on off and on her whole life. That makes sense. So it's not because there's anything age appropriate, it's because you want to experience it with her as
Mm-hmm.
she experiences it.
Yep.
Whereas my daughter kind of just gets it by osmosis.
Yep.
Um, well, yeah. Well, what do you think about for the video games or the card game?
So all right, I never got into the Pokemon card games. Like I collected them or my parents gave me some of the cards, but I
Same.
never played them with other people.
So the first time I actually properly played the Pokemon card game was as a missionary.
Oh really?
There was a trend in my mission at one point that like missionaries would like play Pokemon on P Day, and it got to a point before I was there that the mission president had to like basically ban Pokemon cards because some missionaries were using their like food money to buy Pokemon cards, which I think is just I face palm it, but I also think it's kind of hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But my companion had still had his Pokemon cards from before the buying of Pokemon cards was banned,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we were together, we Halloween happened while we I was together with him, and um, I mean you can't go out proselyting after a certain point on Halloween, at least in my mission. I don't know if it was the same in yours. So we had like 3 hours before like getting ready for bed that was essentially like another P day where it's like you could read, you could whatever, but there was only so much. This was before, Facebook proselyting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught me to play Pokemon with the cards that he had. That's how we spent our Halloween that year.
Would you teach your daughter how to play
Um,
the
I'd have
card game?
I'd have to relearn. My nephew, when we first moved to Texas, he just wanted someone new to play with besides his dad, and since I was interested in Pokemon, he taught me like the basic way to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to relearn that basic way to play where you don't have to worry about the energy cards quite so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'd teach my daughter to play the cards if she wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
She's already got a couple cards because they came in a Happy Meal, and then she
Yeah.
got a little pack trick or treating. But so neither of us is playing with a full deck, but she likes that she has her cards. Although right now they're mostly forgotten because it's been a month since Halloween, and there are other, louder and shinier toys that she could be playing with right now.
So like with the card game, for my opinion is like I probably wouldn't push it like you said, um, just because that could you can invest a lot of money in those
Yeah. Like if she
card
showed an
collecting games.
interest, then I would
But
learn
if she
it
had,
with her.
yeah, if she had interest, I would definitely do it. Like allow her to get some of the cards. Also, I know her cousins have cards,
Same.
and so if they like if they want to play with her, then I'd be totally down for her playing. Like, there's nothing bad about the card game. It's just more like I've never played it, so I don't know.
Well, and
But
I know how much money I invested. Well, actually, I don't know how much money I invested in playing Yu-Gi-Oh in middle school and high school, but it was. I mean, in the world today, if I were to try to invest in playing a card game again, I would not be buying booster packs. I would be going on Amazon and looking for specific cards
yeah,
because I had the worst luck um with booster packs. My friend that I played Yu-Gi-Oh with always had the best luck in finding the rare cards and stuff he wanted. I always got repeats and commons, and so if I were to help her learn to play any card game, I think I'd seek out specific cards for her instead of encouraging booster packs quite so much.
that's a good point. Yeah,
Booster packs are part of the fun, but if I could go back, I'd whatever.
but I think like the most important part is like if she was interested in Pokemon card games, I would like be interested in it with her because I just want to spend time with my children
Yeah,
and be part of their lives. So that's on her. She gets to
yeah.
decide if she ever wants to do the card game.
But I think, as I mentioned before, it takes a certain amount of literacy too. Maybe not with
Hmm.
the cards, because you could, I mean, they could read the cards, or you could explain it to them, and that kind of thing they can commit to memory pretty easily. Um, Whereas the video games, there's enough text and directions and stuff that I think that would take a little more literacy.
Hmm.
I think they could get into the card games earlier than the video games, just
Now,
education wise.
when do you think you could introduce the games to your daughter? Like, how old do you think she will be when she can read well enough to play the game?
Oh, that's a good question. Because she's played with me a little bit. I've pulled out my 3DS and she's played some of the DS games with me. But that mostly involves her using the stylus and me telling her which color button to press.
Yeah,
So she doesn't really have a concept of what's going on. I'll just say, do you want to use the green attack or the white attack? I think you should use the green one.
and she click on the green one.
Yeah, pretty much. But like I was second grade when Pokemon became a thing, and so I had a sufficient amount of literacy to be able to, once me and my brothers started getting, we had blue version and yellow version at
Hmm.
first, and we were able to enjoy. I was able to enjoy blue well enough at like 7, 8, 9 years old. Any younger than that, I don't know if I would have even been able to read well enough to enjoy those. I don't know. Maybe by first grade, but
I think I was about the same age when my sister brought home Pokemon Silver. So she was dating a guy, and he let her borrow his Game Boy Color, and he gave her Pokemon Silver, and she was playing it. And she brought it home, and she said I could play it as long as I don't save over her save data. So I started playing it, and I'm pretty sure I was about the same age, 7, 8, or 9. So let's see. Yeah, I would say it was around that age. So I would say like probably the same time because with Pokemon games, it's not that complicated to play.
no.
As long as you attack, you should win.
Yeah, at least most of the time.
most of the time. There's not much strategy to the game, even though they
I
try to
mean,
say strategy.
the most strategy there is having enough patience to grind so that your Pokemon's level is high enough to win,
Mhm.
which it is what it is.
Yep. And so I think like if my daughter wants to play the game, probably when she's 7, 8, or 9, when she
Yeah,
can read enough to read the text, but she doesn't have to understand strategies.
yeah. I mean, the biggest amount of strategy to really know is the type advantages, which that just comes with practice.
And at the beginning, you don't have those type of advantages. So when you face oh, what's that one Pokemon? The Caterpie's like shell second
Oh,
evolution.
Metapod.
Metapod. That one just is cringe because you don't have any type of advantage at that point,
Yeah.
and it just keeps hardening itself.
Well, I mean, I knew enough as a kid that and probably my brothers told me this, but I knew well enough that I needed to pick either Squirtle or Bulbasaur would be good to fight Brock. Um,
Hmm.
but then Bulbasaur would be good against Misty, so I think they taught me to pick Bulbasaur first because he was good against the first two gyms. But
Hmm.
then, of course, as you understand strategy more, you can pick different starters because you can, have your favorite and plan your how to beat Brock and Misty without having to rely on Bulbasaur.
Exactly.
That was the thing about Yellow version is Pikachu was like not just ineffective against Brock, but like his electric attacks were useless, did not do anything, and his quick attack was weak. So I don't know how people managed it back then. Um, because by the time I understood it, I was like, okay, I can get a Mankey and he can learn a fighting attack, and then that can beat Brock.
Hmm.
But I think I was in middle school or high school when I first played Yellow. I just grew up with Blue at first.
It's just because you probably have patience back then too. No, I think kids that start with yellow, that's like 7, 8, or 9, just have more patience than we do as adults or as
Yeah.
we grow older.
Yeah. But anyway, I do think though, overall, I think Pokemon is doing a good job of um, accessing all different age groups to some extent. Like my brother got these picture books with the shoot, what do you call them? With the flaps. Um,
Pop-up
that
books?
not pop up books with the flaps that like reveal a picture underneath.
Oh,
Um, that he got her 4 different ones for letters, numbers, shapes, and colors. When she was like 1 or 2. So she's been able to look at those for years now. And it's letters and numbers, but she also gets to enjoy the Pokemon. And I think even on the Pokemon TV app, there are like nursery rhymes with pictures of and videos of Pokemon on them. So Pokemon has created content for like younger kids, mostly to cater to parents like us who want to kind of indoctrinate our kids with Pokemon.
and it's a cash grab for them. Let's just,
Oh, well, but those things are free, like
but
the videos at least.
and one thing I like too, like I haven't seen the most recent animes, but the television shows, but they just like I'm not sure if you're aware of this. You probably are, but Ash retired,
Oh yeah.
and now there's a new protagonist, and it's a female.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard about that, and I think the dub is coming to Netflix at some point. I think I saw something recently about it at least.
Anyway, that makes me excited because I'm like maybe I should just start there for my daughter.
Yeah. I mean, you never had to like watch all the way from the beginning of the first season to know what Ash to like deal with Ash, because every time he goes to a new region, it's like he doesn't know anything about Pokemon again. Starts with a new team, acts like, wait, type advantage? Wait, what? What Pikachu can do what? Like I'm
That's
watching uh the Alola anime right now is on the Pokemon TV app. And
uh-huh.
sometimes I'm like, why is Ash asking this dumb question? He's done this in like every region.
He's been doing
So
this for 20 years now.
yeah, so the nice thing is you can jump in with not just like this new protagonist makes it even easier.
Mm-hmm.
But you can really jump in with any given Pokemon series, any different region, and I mean, not that kids ever have to know the full backstory, but there's always a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did think the one exception to any of this that like I would not, the one part of the Pokemon franchise that I would not introduce my daughter to is there was the Detective Pikachu movie, um, starring Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu. So it's a live action Pokemon movie with CGI Pokemon. I did a blog post about it earlier in 2023, and when it was on the Tubi app for free, and it's got some more mature language and mature themes. Nothing sexual, but just like I think there was some mild kind of biblical swears,
Mm.
um, and there was definitely some darker themes. So I would not have watched that one with my daughter. But for a teenager or an adult, it might be more enjoyable as opposed to the repetitive nature of Ash's adventures.
That's good to know. I haven't looked into Detective Pikachu, so.
I mean, it had I had various opinions on it, which is why I did a blog post about it, which I
Mm.
can link to. But there are some points where it was fun and it kind of hinted at some nostalgia. Like you have a little scene of the Ryan Reynolds Pikachu singing the original Pokemon theme song. He kind of did it in a kind of a depressed tone just because of what was going on at that point in the movie. But the fact that you got Ryan Reynolds singing the Pokemon theme song I don't care if you like Ryan Reynolds or not. It was cute.
I wonder how much money he got for singing that one song.
I mean, it was only a few lines from the song, but still, yeah. But I didn't think that the CGI for that movie really meshed well with the live action.
Uh-huh.
And there's only so much you can do with making anime monsters look realistic without making them look also completely terrifying.
Sonic was able to do that.
So, but also, I mean, Pokemon, Detective Pikachu was doing it for like every scene with like half the characters were Pokemon, right? So
Fair.
Sonic only had to do it with like a handful of characters the whole movie, but every like half of each screen was Pokemon in Detective Pikachu. So I don't know. Maybe a different budget, maybe different, and maybe it was a stylistic choice on purpose to have the contrast. I don't know, but it was one of the things that I didn't like. But and again, it's not something that I would have watched with my daughter anyways. But since it was free on Tubi, I had to give it a shot.
Good to know.
So next time it's up on Tubi, I'll probably like reshare the blog post. Um, any closing thoughts for you?
Uh, my closing thought is just anyone watching this, wait to introduce Pokemon to your children. That's my opinion, but let us know what your opinion is in the comments.
Yeah, and for me, my thought is, your kid shows an interest and they're going to show an interest because of what you're interested in as well. If I didn't have Pokemon on, then my daughter would have no idea what Pokemon is. And so she wouldn't show an interest. So it goes both ways. So let us know what you think. We got comment section on our socials. We've got comment section on Spotify. We're listening. Cut that out because that sounded creepy. We'd love to hear from you. So that's all we got for today. Smell you later, as Blue would say.
Thanks for listening to the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we don't represent the church in any official capacity. Remember to subscribe to the podcast. You can see our show notes and blog posts on latterdaysaintgeeks.com, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Latter-day Saint Geeks. Music was provided courtesy of David Schradel.